Okay, so this is my review of Servant Season 2, Episode 5, Cake. This was written by Tony Baskalop and Nina Braddock, and directed by Lisa Bruhlman. Now, this episode, after the crazy episode that I loved last week, is a real come down, and it's more of now starting up a new setup here. And that process would be the setup for Leanne to get now some serious revenge on Dorothy for how Dorothy's treated her. When we see this episode, we're literally seeing Leanne put the pieces to her plan here together of this ritual we're going to see happen at the end of the episode that's going to do something to Dorothy. So what's Leanne's plan? Leanne's plan is to hack into Sean's computer, easy password as they say, it's Jericho, sends the baby to the house that she needs for the king cake and the ritual, and makes it that Dorothy and Sean get out of the house and go think they're going to make a deal of a $200,000 ransom. What's also part of Leanne's plan is she has to get a piece of Dorothy's clothing, and I guess in particular one she recently wore. So the outfit we actually see Dorothy open up in this episode is the nightgown she eventually puts on the mannequin, aka Mrs. Barrington as Leanne calls it. Now what's interesting about this episode is we saw at the end of last episode that Dorothy woke up, but she really didn't fully wake up now, we're seeing, which could be frustrating as a viewer, but again, this is one of those processes of keeping a story going for as long as they want to plan out how many seasons, and if it's going to be a longer story than just a typical movie, you're going to have to stretch out someone's ultimate reaction to something, and with Dorothy, we're kind of seeing her break more and more, and that was like her last episode realizing what happened in the past and then like snapping back into denial, which actually makes me have less sympathy for, because it's not like she's completely delusional now, it's also choosing to be completely delusional. And I think thematically this episode's reaffirming the mistakes that Sean, Julian, and even Dorothy still make, where no one in this Turner family faces the music, and they're gonna suffer consequences because they don't learn. And we really see this when Julian says to Sean that I get what Dorothy did, meaning how she buried Leanne. He's excusing his sister's behavior. He even tries to say at the end when he confronts Leanne that, how could you do this to Dorothy? Like, she got you this bed frame, etc., etc. So it's serious, just constant denial and justification. And it goes back to the line from the previous episode where Julian was saying to Sean that, aren't they the victims here? But we're seeing more and more they really aren't. I mean, if you take a step back from us being in their shoes and being with this family, again, they've just kidnapped Leanne and Dorothy tried burying her alive. But Dorothy's play here, especially to Toby, is to make it like this is just, again, an intervention for Leanne and that she's saving her from the cult. So that's what explains Toby not really catching on to fully what's going on here with Leanne in the Turner house. Also of note in this episode is that we actually don't see Dorothy on the news coverage this episode. It's her understudy, Isabel, who she does not like, and covers for her when she's not around. So it's also showing you and reminding you when Dorothy's really laser focused on a problem in her life, it can affect something that she finds so dear in her career. Now, the most interesting parts of this episode were with Leanne and Toby in the kitchen when she was making the cake. And she's talking about making this king cake, which is tradition for Mardi Gras. And they do this where they put a little baby that's supposed to symbolize baby Jesus. And whoever finds that baby when they're all eating pieces of the cake is the king for the day. And then they have to make the next cake. But here it's a little different where she's talking about she did this with her mom, who we're hearing about now, and that we know the mom was a drunk, and she was saying that she was put in pageants because she believed it was the only thing she could actually do. So she was pretty awful mother here. And what's funny is she would put a brandy glaze on the cake, which had great payoff because that's the reason Julian actually ends up eating the cake later on. But Leanne's sharing to Toby that whenever she did well at these pageants, she got to put the baby in the cake, but the mom would always find it, and in their ritual, whoever found the baby was the special one, and she would make Leanne say, you're the special one to her, and Leanne has this little episode in front of Toby. But it's really just showing you Leanne's trauma that she went through as a child with her mother. There's an interesting line where Toby's like, where is your mother now? And Leanne says burning. That can mean so many things. We know her parents died in a fire. She could be alluding to that. She could also be alluding that her mother's burning in hell, or that she's somehow connected to this ritual and that she's burning in the oven as that cake is cooking. I'm not really sure. It could mean so many things with this show. I'd love to hear your theories though on that down below. But see, when Toby notices the scratch marks on Leanne's arm, he's assuming that it was the family, the Marinos, that did that to Leanne that she was with, because of how Dorothy's painted this picture. What I am actually happy about, something I had a gripe with the episode, was that when we see Julian's now watching the feed of Sean and Dorothy going to the mall, he has Roscoe watching them. In my mind, I was like, there's no way in hell Roscoe would even attempt to help the Turners or be around this cult ever again. So I'm very happy they had him run away once he saw Uncle George. That was more believable. I still don't think for the life of me that he would even step foot into that mall or help Julian anymore. But you see Julian puts the pieces together, figures out it was Leanne who sent the baby and the note, and goes upstairs and he's like, why would you do that to her? Talking about Dorothy. And this goes back to them pushing, again, that reminder to us, the audience, that there's just denial always based on the Turners and what's really going on. And Leanne's like, I want to see her get what she deserves, reaffirming she is out for blood now with Dorothy. And we'll see Uncle George shows up on the feed that Julian misses this. And Uncle George will show up at the house with Sean and Dorothy. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits into this right now. And it's interesting because he's coming in right around the same time he did in season 1 to the Turner house. So we'll see how different this visit is. My favorite part of this episode, of course, was this last sequence. I love how they did it with Leanne. She's eating this full king cake, and the lights are flickering behind her. It was pure horror here. And I like that the glass was breaking in some of the bulbs. And like her mother did, she holds up the baby to Mrs. Barrington. So if that's supposed to represent Dorothy, Miss Barrington with her outfit on, whatever Leanne's doing to her, it's got to somehow interconnect to what Leanne went through from her mother. It's a deep meaning ritual of Leanne taking this out on someone she hates now. And it's something that is symbolic of the hate she had of her mother and how her mother treated her. So you know this is going to be something wicked. So this episode, though, it's a shorter review for me because it's a little thinner on just what's actually progressing, what's actually going on. Again, it's really a setup episode and it's a come down episode, which is necessary because you have such an exciting 2 episodes the week before and last week, and kind of trying now to set the base for the second half of the season because we have hit the midway point. So overall, I'm going to give this one an 8.4. Still think it's really solid. Interesting where it's going, but it's not going to be one you really remember. It's really centered in on setting up whatever Leanne is doing, and I'm sure we're going to get a huge payoff for that. Let me know what you thought of this episode down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel. It will help me so much. You have no idea. And if you really love what I do, I'd appreciate if you can commit to a $2 monthly donation. There's a link down below for that. That will help me do more videos for you guys, cover more shows. I'll be forever grateful. And please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.